y'all? It is your boy Gardi3, and welcome to Coffee and Sports, the morning show. Morning, Key. Of course, joining just like every morning, he is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great. Good morning, Brett. Good morning, Chad. Hey, Key, what's going on?
So, I figure we might as well get right into the big NBA news from yesterday, Mo. Mikal Bridges, 4 years, 150 million. Player option on the last year, 15% trade kicker. He took a $6 million pay cut to try to help them out a little bit. So, but what are your thoughts on the Mikal Bridges contract?
I think it's good that they locked him up. Look, Bridges is kind of a jack of all trades for the Knicks. High end defender, strong mid range game, improved on his 3-point shot. I think what they're looking for from him this season is to up his production across the board. Like, I think they want Bridges to become a 19, 20 point per game scorer to go along with his defense. If they can get that out of him, I think that would diversify the offense even more and not put such a burden on Brunson and Towns. They need a more aggressive Bridges. So I completely understand why they locked him up. Look, it's a lot of money, and I'm sure somebody will say that that's a lot of money for Mikal Bridges. In this day and age in the NBA, for what he does, I don't know. It's starting to be more market value when you look at some of the other contracts out there. So, and he is part of their current core. So they're locking up that core for the next 4 or 5 years.
And this really just feels like that this is them going all in on this current core for the next 4 years. At the end of the day, when it comes to Mikal, do I think they overpaid him? I mean, yeah, but on the flip side, they didn't really have much of a choice here. We knew as soon as they traded for him that this was going to be their core for the next couple of years. And Mikal, they were going to clearly extend him. They're going to give him, we thought, 4 years, the 156 mil. So he took a little bit of a pay cut to, give him some flexibility. And for the Knicks, yeah, it seems like they're really banking on him to up his scoring, to be a little bit more efficient and productive on that end. He gave him some great defense last year, and if he can jump up to 20 to 22 a game, that would be awesome for the Knicks. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
And look, money is only an issue if the team doesn't live up to the aspirations. If you overpay all your players, but you end up in the finals and win it all, nobody's going to worry about the money. So if they can achieve the ultimate goal, no one's ever going to talk about contracts.
No, absolutely. I'm looking forward to, seeing how that plays out. Say all the drama is a lot of fun. We're going to be waiting a while on the, Jonathan Kuminga stuff to play out. Say apparently the Warriors' other moves are being held up by it. Say the Al Horford signing. So, if I'm the Warriors, I'm going to probably at least try to figure out what I'm doing with Kuminga at training camp because I don't want these other roster moves held up by, whatever's going on with Kuminga.
I feel like certain players who have certain skill sets find themselves in a weird NBA purgatory. Jonathan Kuminga is a talented player, a good scorer, a gifted scorer, but no one sees him as a franchise building block. Josh Giddey with the Bulls, terrific all-around player, does a little bit of everything, jack of all trades, master of none, and yet Chicago doesn't want to pay him because they don't know what his ceiling is. What they know is he can't be the guy. That's the starting point. So if we know you're not a franchise player, if we're unsure if you can even be the number 2 guy, how do we value you? And I think that's the dilemma Golden State and Chicago has with Kuminga and Giddey.
Right, and when they're just kind of going for, we want 30 mil a piece, like I don't know. That's steep to a lot of these teams, but I think Kuminga. I know the Kings are offering him like 22 mil a year or whatever. I think he would take that, like in Sacramento, because at least he could go there and be the guy on the Kings. So at this point, I think Kuminga would just be happier with a more solidified role somewhere else.
I'm actually surprised Sacramento's not offering him more. We always the line beggars can't be choosers. Let's be honest. Look at the Kings' history; they're still beggars. And I like Jonathan Kuminga going somewhere else, getting a fresh start. He could very well become the man. The good news is going there with two proven veteran scorers like Levine and DeRozan. I think those are two good guys to learn under. They're proven pros and scorers. He can eventually maybe take over that role of being a number one option offensively. I'm not sure of that, but the potential is there. It's a matter of the development and the fit.
I feel like if they trade for Kuminga, they probably just trade DeRozan too and let Kuminga be the guy. Like, if you're the Kings, I think you might as well just turn it over to the young guys because, running into the offense another year through DeRozan just gets you nowhere. You might as well see what you have in Kuminga.
If I'm Golden State and I'm making a deal with Sacramento, I want Zach LaVine because Zach LaVine fits what Golden State does. He can shoot the three at a high level, moves well without the ball, can create for himself and others. Just because he has more of an extended game and an extended range, he fits with Golden State. DeMar is a mid-range master. He would be good in Golden State. LaVine would be great in Golden State.
Say, well, morning, Jonathan and David. It's good, guys.
Hey, good morning, guys.
I almost think that they'll target the cheaper option. Actually, I think Golden State, they already have a lot of big contracts on the board, so I could actually see them having a very similar idea, but just trying that same concept with Malik Monk. I think he's a lot cheaper than Zach LaVine, even if he is a little worse. When you're the Warriors and you already have big contracts going out to Steph, Jimmy, and Dre, like I think they'll aim for the cheaper option in Monk in any possible trade.
I can see them going that route. I do know that Dunleavy is looking to make a bigger move. So Malik Monk is a possibility, and he is an instant offense guy. He can fill in and be he can kind of replace what Jordan Poole gave them, if you will. I'm only bringing up LaVine because on that team, Zach LaVine's the third option. And on a team where Zach LaVine's your third option, you're a scary team. And as good as Malik Monk is as a scorer, he's not a better scorer than Zach LaVine. So I understand the money aspect of it. But if you're Golden State and your core is 35 and up with Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond, you're not really worried about money. You're going all in and trying to win like right now. You're trying to max out the last 2 or 3 years of Steph Curry's career.
No, fair enough. Actually, I didn't think that the Kings offer was that. I didn't think the Kings offer was that bad. At least they're offering a protected first for Kuminga. I think, but that's pretty much the holdup. So the Warriors want unprotected. The Kings are only offering protected. The Suns' offer wasn't terrible either. I think I read it was like O'Neal, Richards, and like 4 seconds. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but in this day and age with the new CBA, those 4 seconds are, especially coming from a team in Phoenix who, if Booker leaves, those could be some very valuable seconds.
Or you could turn those seconds into a first. I think they do have value. I agree with you. And look, if the Suns are what we think they're going to be going into this season, yeah, Devin Booker's going to leave. He's going to demand a trade. I know they just extended him, but he's not trying to finish his career on a lottery team. He's 30 years old. He's still in the prime of at the peak of his powers. He's not trying to waste those years on a rebuild.
No, and I completely agree with that. I think he'll definitely give them another year or two, but yeah, if it doesn't improve at all, which to be clear, I think the Suns actually had a really solid draft with Malik and Fleming. Those are some great picks. But I think if it doesn't improve the next year or two, I don't think D-Book's really going to stick around for a long rebuild. So they better see improvement from those young guys really quick. And I'm definitely looking forward to this next NBA season, Mo. It's going to be absolutely terrific. See how guys see how teams like the Magic, who made a lot of moves, are going to be. I think it's going to be great.
I'm excited, especially to watch teams like Orlando with the addition of Desmond Bane, Detroit bringing back a healthy Jaden Ivey to give Cade a running mate. Two young teams on the come up with a big opportunity because of the big gap in the Eastern Conference, with both the Celtics and Pacers taking a step back because their two best players won't be playing this year. There's an opportunity for these two young, talented teams to elevate themselves. And I think, barring injury, they will.
Say, morning, Jory. Kuminga would have been a great part. Would have been a great starter. That's the skills. Warriors roster lacked the center. Yeah, I would say Warriors roster still has Trace Jackson Davis and Draymond, I think, as their starting centers, but they definitely think they could use another body in there. So, which maybe you could use a Kuminga trade to bring back another depth piece at center, which I think that's kind of part of the reason why I like the Suns. Suns offer so much too. If you can get someone like O'Neal who can play another spot on the wing, and Nick Richards gives you another body at center, I think that's great for the Warriors. That's two depth pieces that you actually really need.
It's no question that they need more size on the roster. But if you're paying attention to what's going on in Chicago, they're trying to move Vucevic, but nobody has come up really as a serious trade partner. And if they can't move him, the next plan is they're going to release him. So if you're going to State and Vucevic hits the free agency, that's your guy. Vucevic fits what Golden State does to a T. He's a pick and pop big, who's also a solid rebounder. And again, you're a veteran core. You're adding another veteran guy. So I think he would be an ideal fit for them should Chicago release him.
And of course, the short-term answer is, well, they're probably getting their hands on Horford, which, even if that's true, that's like a 1-year thing. You get your hands on someone like Vucevic, you could probably have him for another productive 2 or 3 seasons, maybe even longer. But like I said, I love the fact that they're, adding Horford, but that's a very short-term rental. I don't see Horford playing, anything past this season.
If you're a Warrior fan in a perfect world, you get Vucevic and Horford. That way you can have Horford coming off your bench. Even if it's just for a 1-year run, that gives you a lot of value at the center. Not to mention Horford can play the 4 and the 5. So I like his versatility. Look, even at this stage in his career, as a rotation player, Al Horford still has a lot of value. And I know that Warriors fans think they got one more push in them. If they can add another piece or two, I don't even disagree with that way of thinking. But the first step is to resolve the situation with Jonathan Kuminga. If he's not part of your future, then make a move that benefits your present or your future and let him go.
No, absolutely. I figure we might as well talk some football today, Mo. We finally had the return of football. We had the Hall of Fame game. We saw Trey Lance. He actually looked really good last night. So, shout out to him. Hopefully he found a home in with the Chargers. The Lions didn't look great. I love overreactions, by the way, because the Lions obviously got blown out last night. why are people going, well, you see, this is the proof they're going to fall apart without Aaron Glenn and Benton Johnson? I'm like, I'm not going to base it off a preseason game with Kyle Allen and Hendon Hooker starting, but I do love, the fact that football's back, though. I think, when it comes to the Chargers, not only did Trey Lance look good, but Keandre Lambert-Smith, fifth-round wide receiver, he looked terrific for them last night. And if he can develop into a solid number 3 that gives the Chargers another weapon on the outside, man, that would be big for the Chargers because they desperately need weapons at wide receiver.
I agree. Excited for football to be back. And the quick reactions to going straight to panic mode. I want to remind people, if Detroit goes 0-4 in the preseason, that means nothing to me. The preseason is not about winning or losing the games. The preseason is about analyzing the guys that are trying to make the team or the guys that are already on the team, second-year players or third-year players. Can they make that next step to where they can contribute more to the team? So, look, what the Lions will or won't be without their top assistants from the previous seasons, that really won't bear out until we start playing real games. So I'm not going to judge them on their preseason. And it's not like the Lions starters played and they played 3 quarters and were awful. It was like it's the first preseason game of the preseason. I'm just glad that football is back. But if you're a Detroit fan, y'all got to tamp down the panic. Relax. RELAX. Relax.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's always funny to see that. It's every preseason. It's just teams start freaking out about their roster. Like, guys, this is time for the rookies and young players to show what they got, or see if any veterans, still have enough in the tank to make the roster one last time. We saw 11-year veteran Tony Jefferson getting picks last night in the Hall of Fame game. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to more preseason football, seeing which guys break out. I'm excited for, obviously, Packers preseason to start up. But if the Chargers need wide receiver help, Mo, Terry McLaurin requested a trade. So I guess
he finally came out and asked for a trade. Okay.
Yep, Schefter reported it yesterday. Terry McLaurin has requested a trade, so they can't, figure out a, asking price. Terry pretty much wants DK Metcalf money, so he's asking like 32, 33 million. I guess, Mo, if you're the Commanders, is it sign him or would you trade him?
I would sign him. And it's interesting because Metcalf is a physical freak, but if you line them up, I'm just talking about what they do on the field. Terry McLaurin has a much better route tree. He's a much better route runner. And I would opt for continuity with my young quarterback, right? I'm not gonna, if it's not broke, don't fix it. He has great chemistry with Terry McLaurin. I'm not gonna change that. I'm gonna bring him back and opt for the continuity and the chemistry that they have between each other. So I would pay him, even if you consider it overpaying him. I would pay him.
And I completely agree with that. Normally, like, I'm not quick to, overpay on wide receivers, but when it comes to Scary Terry, I don't even think it's an overpay. I think he earned his money. Also, like you said, when it comes to Scary Terry, we're talking about a team that if you don't have him, you're running Debo at wide receiver 1, and then you're running like Noah Brown at wide receiver 2, and then Luke McCaffrey. Like, you don't have the talent pool at wide receiver to just move on from him quite yet, even if you wanted to.
Right. And that's where my mind is at. He's not just their best wideout. It's not like when you look at their receiving core in that receiving room, there's not any one guy ready to step up and be the guy just yet. Debo is valuable, but he's valuable because in all the different ways you can use him. He's I think he'll be a solid number 2 to McLaurin, but Debo's I never considered him a great number 1. He wasn't. He's a great football player, but he's not a great number 1 receiver.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. Debo's more of a gadget guy to me, so I would not want him as my wide receiver 1. Say, get McLaurin in a Niners jersey. There you go, Mo. Maybe that's your new wide receiver 1.
David, I would have no problems with that. I'm actually with you on that.
I'm super excited to, I'm excited to see how that ends up. See where that ends up. I'm curious also to see who the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns will end up being. Kenny Pickett's got a hamstring injury. I guess the real question almost is, if Kenny Pickett's out for an extended time, is it Gabriel or Sanders getting that backup quarterback spot? Because I'm assuming Joe Flacco's the starter. I just don't know who's going to be the backup.
And yet, doesn't it seem obvious that when you drafted Gabriel, I have to assume Gabriel would be the backup? Like, even right now in camp, Shador is not getting any reps with the number 1 offense. So that's not a good sign so far in terms of him having a shot at being the backup.
Yeah. And I also find it interesting too. On a fun topic, the Madden ratings just came out. Man, I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback, drafted first overall disrespected more. Cam Ward is a 71 overall, and nobody is even talking about him when it comes to this offseason so far. I really don't know if I've seen like a quarterback that was drafted at 1 get less love than we've seen this offseason with Cam Ward. I think it's pretty wild to me.
So let me ask you this. On his Madden ratings, if he's a 71, I have to assume his speed and quickness are really high, right?
Yeah.
And his throwing power is probably really high, but his throwing accuracy is probably not that great. And his awareness is probably not that great.
Yeah, I'm assuming so. Yeah, it's just weird to me. Like, you get a quarterback that's number 1 overall, you'd assume like they'd at least be in top 10 in overall, rookie ratings. But no, he isn't even top 10, and the 10th highest rated rookie is a 78 overall, and he's nowhere near that.
So Madden doesn't have high hopes for Cam Ward in his rookie year?
Nope.
You know what? I'm gonna take the other side of this. I think Cam Ward outplays that 71 rating.
I think so too. I think he's a great quarterback. So, which is what's throwing me off so hard about this. I think another interesting one is somehow Jair Alexander's still a 90, like 3 overall. And it throws me off because he's great, but he's hardly played in the last 3 years. So I'm just like, all right, well, I guess that man is never getting bumped down, because it feels like once you get that reputation of an elite, like, lockdown corner especially in games like Madden, it just takes forever for that rating to go finally down.
That's a good point. In Madden, all pro and Pro Bowl corners, they age very well in Madden.
Yeah, like I don't, because if I don't mind the highest rated is Surtain with a 97, then Christian Gonzalez, Sauce Gardner, Trent McDuffie, Jalen Ramsey, Derek Singletary, Humphrey, then Jair, and then it's Denzel Ward and Jalen Johnson. Even though I think, Denzel Ward and Jalen Johnson should, be over Jair. Which, like I said, I like Jair. He's great when he's on the field. The problem is he's just never on the field.
And that's the problem. That whole thing about being available, not one of his greatest strengths. Just struggles with a lot of injuries here and there. But when he is on the field, terrific player.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hey, on the bright side, your guy's the best linebacker in the NFL, Fred Warner, 97 overall. So say Madden fans rejoice if you're playing with the 49ers. Another great year for Fred Warner fans, which honestly well deserved. Fred Warner's just terrific every year. It feels like he does not age.
I love Fred Warner because he's got an incredible motor. He's an incredible leader. He just has a relentlessness about him and super high IQ. Can see plays coming before they just can read things so quickly and react. So you want nobody better than him in the middle of that field, calling out your defensive sets. Love the guy. With Robert Saleh back, I think Fred Warner's going to have an even better year coming off of last.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I think they did nail too, by the way, I would say, and I love Madden ratings because I think you're fun to talk about. Gives an excuse to almost highlight some players that I think are almost fly under the radar. I love the fact that they do have Dexter Lawrence as their highest rated defensive line. Well, he's tied with Chris Jones, but I think Dexter Lawrence flies under the weather a lot just because of how bad the Giants are. And I think the Giants kind of just sucking takes a lot of eyes off him when in all reality, he's been arguably the best defensive lineman in the league for a couple of years now. Like, he impacts the pass, he impacts the run. He's the best run defender. He's one of the best pass rushers, from that defensive tackle spot. Like, Dexter Lawrence is an absolutely insane talent, and I'm definitely glad that he's getting recognized in this one.
Dexter Lawrence is a beast, but don't forget that Giants front four as a whole is the best front four in football, right? Like they're gonna wreak havoc on NFL backfields, on NFL quarterbacks. The only question with the Giants defense is the back end. Will the back end hold up as well as the front seven?
No, absolutely. But my favorite thing too about the ratings this year is for the first time ever, they introduced their long snapper ratings early.
Really?
Well, they got some passionate debates about who's the best long snapper in the league, and it's fantastic.
That's a conversation. That's a conversation, really?
Yeah. I love passionate sports debates about random topics. You'll appreciate this one, Mo. I was on TikTok yesterday. Two guys having the most passionate sports debate. Who's better between TJ McConnell or Davion Mitchell? And it was maybe the greatest minute of my life.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. One interesting debate. Two players that kind of fly under the radar in terms of those kind of conversations. Davion Mitchell obviously is younger and is on the come up and can get better. But to be honest, right now today, McConnell's the better basketball player.
I completely agree with that. I think Davion has a lot of potential, and Davion also looks like he's finally remembering how to play basketball after leaving the Kings. But
a lot of people do that when they leave the Kings.
No, I completely agree with that. It's funny. It's funny how that works too. How some players, as soon as they leave a specific franchise, just all of a sudden look like they remember how to play basketball. Or as soon as they join a franchise, they forget how to play basketball. Obviously, a great example of that is the Kings. It feels like every single Lakers bench piece forgets how to play basketball. But if you go to Miami, all of a sudden you look like a great basketball player out of nowhere.
Culture matters. It does. Culture, coaching, it matters. Sacramento has struggled to develop a culture over the last few years. I thought they were on the upswing with Mike Brown, and then we found out it was more of a blip. And before you knew it, Mike Brown was gone. Now he's the coach of the Knicks. I think what they have to do is do the hard thing that they've been trying to avoid. Instead of keep making moves that are more like Band-Aids, I think what Sacramento needs to do is do the hard thing. They need to rebuild. And when I say rebuild, you've got to move on from Levine. You've got to move on from DeRozan, accept the fact you're not going to be very good, and get a high draft pick or two and build through the draft. But you have to start fresh, or you're always going to be in that weird NBA purgatory.
And when you're like player that you draft starts to actually become a good basketball player, don't trade him. Just don't.
Yeah, that part too. that part too.
That's the Kings way. They're the only like team in the past decade to draft 3 all NBA level point guards, and they literally traded every single one of them or got rid of all of them. Obviously, Isaiah Thomas at one point was a very good point guard for them, and he turned out to be an all NBA level. But they never really reaped the rewards of that. Obviously, they traded Halliburton. They traded Fox. That's almost the problem with the Kings. They're like actually pretty funny. They're like pretty good at finding like guards. But right before they're about to break out, they're like, yeah, let's ship them off now.
They might have to eventually move off from Sabonis as well too. And I think Sabonis is a terrific basketball player, highly skilled, but he's the kind of player that's just good enough he'll help you win enough games to where you won't get a top 5 pick. I really do think they're going to have to do the tough thing. They've got to move on because so far it's hit and miss. They've never developed a core that they tried to bring together over the last few years. Bringing Levine and DeRozan together, that looks good on a video game. It doesn't look so good in real life.
The fact it failed once, and then they're like, yeah, you know what? We're going to run it back. That was the funny part to me. Like, it's not like it's some secret that those two as a duo, as good as they are as individual talents, don't lead to success. The fact it didn't work in Chicago, and the Kings are like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. We're going to be Bulls West. Which, if your goal is to be like the Bulls, you should probably aim a lot higher than that. It's so weird, and I completely agree with you, though. At the end of the day, culture matters. That's why sometimes you'll see, that's why I don't always, like, jump on this whole, this team should have drafted this player. Like, yeah, but, like, player X would be completely different if they got drafted by a different team. It's like in the NFL how Bears fans are always like, see, we could have gotten Patrick Mahomes over Mitch Trubisky. And I'm just like, what does Patrick Mahomes even look like as the quarterback of the Bears? Because they wouldn't have taken their time to develop him and sat him a year like they did, behind Alex Smith and really, helped to iron out his game. No, they would have just thrown him into the fire and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I agree. Look, the Bears franchise, I know it's one of the storied franchises in football, but what they're not known for is developing quarterbacks. They're not like if you went down worst franchises in NFL history when it comes to development of quarterbacks, the Bears would be in the top 3, easy, maybe top 2. They're god awful. I have to believe, just off the top of my head, it would be the Bears, the Browns, and I don't know who the third team right now is, but definitely the Bears and the Browns. Oh, I know what the third team is, the Jets. They're awful at developing quarterbacks too.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't even remember like the actual like last great quarterback the Jets developed. It literally might just be like Joe Namath, unless you're really big on Pennington or Mark Sanchez.
Right. And in Sanchez's case, I know it's a bad word. He was a good game manager. He was. They had a great defense, strong run game, and Sanchez had one job, don't lose the football game. And he was really good at that over a 3-year span.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, it's always, and that's why I don't like to jump on the bandwagon of, well, these guys should have drafted, this team should have drafted this player, like, so they can ruin them. Like, unless you're going to get a generational talent, like, it doesn't turn out the way that you think. Like, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens next for a team like the Kings and see what their game plan is to bust out of NBA purgatory. And I hope they do it sooner rather than later. I don't know if our guys like Aaron can handle much more of what they're doing now.
And the thing is, great fan base. Sacramento has one of the most loyal fan bases in all of sports. So they're deserving of a good product out there. And every time you think they made the right moves to start a full-on rebuild, they make another move and they take a couple of steps back. So it's hard to be a coach in that situation, in that franchise, when your front office, they're not consistent. Like we always talk about culture, it starts at the top with your ownership, your team president, your general manager, and it trickles down. And Sacramento as a whole, they've lacked that kind of leadership for the better part of 2 decades.
Yeah, then that's fair enough. Obviously, when it comes to the Kings, they got a great fan base. I got a buddy who's a Giants fan. I'm hoping for great things from the Giants. I'm less optimistic about them, but you know what? It's funny with the Giants. I think they actually are. I think New York is actually, building something. I think their defense is starting to kind of shape up. If the New York Giants could just figure out what they're doing at quarterback and maybe snag one in next year's draft, like, I think they can have something like a lot quicker than people realize. Like, if that front seven comes together and you get a real quarterback to pair with Malik Neighbors and get some more weapons on offense, like, I feel like that team could start doing some serious, like, making some serious playoff pushes in the next couple of years.
Let me ask you something, because a lot has been said of the Giants' schedule. I think they said they have the toughest schedule in the NFL, correct?
Yeah.
If that's the case, let's say Russell Wilson is your starter and he gives you a 28 touchdown, 10 pick season, and the defense is what we project them to be, and they end up being a top 5 defense overall. Wouldn't that tell you that the Giants are probably going to be a little bit better than people project them to be too, right? You know what I mean? Like, because I look at the NFC East, the Eagles are the cream of the crop in the East. But Dallas doesn't have a great offensive line. They don't have a running game that I know of. And their defense, while they can get after the passer, they can't stop the run. Washington had a great season last year. But you and I talked about this before. They won like 7 or 8 one-point games. That's not normal, right? And you're not coming into the very next season going, we're going to win another 7 or 8 one-point games. The law averages are that won't happen again. So while I think Jaden Daniels will be better, I don't think their record will be better. I don't think the Redskins are going to win 12 or 13 games next year. I don't see that. I think they're more like a 10-win team. And if they're a 10-win team and the Giants are better than what people project them to be, I would say that the Giants have an outside shot to maybe even have a winning season. I'm not saying make the playoffs, but what if the Giants won 9 games?
If they win 9 games, build Brian Dable a statue outside of the arena. It's funny because I don't think they're that bad. It's just, the schedule is that daunting, and that's why I'm just not that high on them this year.
Facts.
But I don't even necessarily think they have that bad of a team this year. I think they have issues on the offensive line that need to be addressed, but
it starts there. But let's say their offensive line overperforms, because that's the key. If their offensive line is solid, you're going to get a solid Russell Wilson. If you're going to protect him, Russ is more than capable. They also have a running back who's underrated. I think he's an 1,100-1,200 yard back. But if they're better than projected, and we're talking about quarterback play, because it always starts there. If the offensive line is better than projected, the key to the Giants season, I would argue, is what they do within the division, right? If you said, well, the Giants versus the Eagles, most people would assume they're going to lose both games against the Eagles. Most people would assume that. But I wouldn't assume they would lose both games against the Cowboys. I wouldn't assume they would lose both games against the Redskins. I actually think they're going to be pretty good in the division, and that's usually a key to how well you do going forward. I think they're going to be better in the division than a lot of people project. They have one demand. The defense is going to be very good. The offense doesn't have to score 25 or 28 points. Let's say the offense averages 21 points a game. If the offense gives you that and the defense is as good as projected, I think they're going to be better than a lot of people see them being. It begins and ends with the offensive line. A good offensive line gives Russell Wilson a good run game. A good run game allows Russ to play action pass, which is something he's very good at. And you've got a guy like Malik Neighbors who can take the top off the defense. What does Russell Wilson do still well at this stage of his career? He throws those moon balls that speedy wide receivers can run under.
Yeah, and I really hope that they have a great season this year. And if they don't, I think they're in a situation where even if they don't, it might be a blessing in disguise. I think the best thing that can happen to them almost is they play and lose competitive games. Like, if they can be competitive in this schedule, like, maybe, like, just lose out on a bunch of games by, like, one possession, that would look great because that would show me, like, okay, they're competing against higher competition. One more offseason influx of talent, develop that, like, sooner rather than later. This team could be a serious, wild card contender and get an elite young quarterback to pair with Neighbors, and sky's the limit. They can jump to the second best team in that division.
And that's fair. Look, the key with everything is what you do with the line of scrimmage on defense or offense. If the offensive line is not that good, if they struggle like they did last year, then Russell Wilson, he will be the starter, but he won't finish the year the starter. He won't. If the offensive line is bad or subpar, all three quarterbacks will start at some point this season. You just hope that when Jackson Dart gets in there, he's ready when they give him the call. But I think that's what will happen. I don't think there's a middle ground for the Giants. They're either going to be surprisingly good or very bad. And if they're very bad, like I said, Jackson Dart will be the starting quarterback before the season's over.
And yeah, that could maybe the solution's already on the roster. Him learning a year behind Jameis and Russ. That's terrific for them. So
not Jameis and Russ, Will and Carlton. Get it right.
Fair enough. The Bears get 2 Super Bowls in each season when they play the Packers. Well, too bad they barely went out on both Super Bowls. They almost did it last year. They went 1-1 against us, but they allowed a field goal to get blocked, which was the greatest thing I could have asked for.
Let me ask you something. It's a division opponent. You know the Bears' history as well as anybody. Everything that Ben Johnson has done this offseason, everything they've done to address the offensive line, add more playmakers around Caleb Williams. If you could project, by the way, everybody out there listening, Wire to Wire will have a fantasy football draft. But if you could project Caleb Williams' numbers for the coming season, what do you think they would look like?
I am very high on, what Caleb Williams could possibly be. And the thing with Ben Johnson is he already said he's building the offense around Caleb Williams and not the run game like he did in Detroit. And if that's the case, like, I think that we could very well see Caleb Williams finally do something that no other Bears quarterback can and crack the 4,000-yard passing season yard mark. I could see him going for 4,100 yards, say maybe 28 touchdowns to say probably somewhere in the probably like eight interception range. Like I'm very high in what Caleb Williams can be under Ben Johnson. So I think you go for like 4K, like 28-8 is probably my more like optimistic standard of what he could do. But you know what? He could go for 30 touchdowns, but I'm going to guess somewhere in the mid to high 20s for touchdowns.
I don't think you're off. I just think that the way I see him, because I watched him a lot at USC, I think you'll get 30 touchdowns from him. I think you'll get the 4,000 yards from him. The only difference between you and I is I think you're going to get 17 to 20 interceptions too.
My assumption with Caleb is he's not going to throw as many picks as I think, mainly because half the time he's weird in the sense that I don't really see him throwing a lot of picks because it feels like that he'd rather almost take a sack than throw it.
Right, but that's what I was going to. I'm glad you brought that up. But that's the reason why I think he will throw more picks. He holds the football too long, but they're beating it into his head that he's got to get the ball out quicker, that he's got to process things quicker. And if the line holds up and he can just step into a throw, like a play aligns exactly how it's supposed to be, I think he'll be fine. I think where he's going to struggle at, Brett, is when plays break down and he's got to make decisions on the fly. I think he's going to throw more picks.
And, that very well could happen. I could absolutely see that. It's funny. Yeah, last year he threw like 6, and I'm just say so. I feel like if that's the benchmark he set in his rookie year, I don't think he'll go too much higher than that. Like, I could see maybe like a 12 interception season from him. But, that's kind of part of the problem with him is he does take too many sacks, and it's not all the O-line's fault. And I feel like that will be his, Achilles heel rather than interceptions. He's a guy that instead of throwing a pick, he's going to just get sacked because he holds on to the ball too long, which honestly could be just as devastating, getting pinned over and over again deep in your own field.
He takes the kind of sacks he take. There's a sack where you drop back and you're just overwhelmed. And then the sack where you drop back and then you drop back again. He takes those kind of sacks where he sacked 15 or 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage because he resets multiple times holding the football.
And that's why when everybody jumped on the Bears O-line, oh, they're so bad. I'm like, well, yes, they're bad. But also, they're not just bad because they're bad necessarily. They're also kind of bad because Caleb Williams continuously tries to, create every 3 seconds. And when you hold on to the ball as long as he does, that's kind of an issue. So I think Ben Johnson's going to work with him. I think his first thing he's going to work on is, hey, ball's got to come out. I'm going to scheme up some good stuff for you. You got to make a quick read. That ball's got to come out, though. Say Bears had I can't even act like the Bears had good QBs though. What do we define as a good quarterback? Jay Cutler? He was good. I could make an argument, I guess, for Jay Cutler, but he was also very flawed.
Right, but how can I say it? They've had talented quarterbacks. But being talented doesn't make you a good quarterback. Jay Cutler on arm talent and all the things we look for, as talented as anybody. But Jay Cutler, when he was on the football field, as erratic, as just not consistent. Not consistent. Guys like Jay Cutler and Jeff George can wow you with their arm talent, but they also can kill you because of the terrible mistakes or how they misread defenses. Think about the history of the Bears. What are the great quarterbacks in Bears history? Name them, because you can make an argument. Jay Cutler is the greatest quarterback in the history of the Bears.
It's either Jay Cutler or Jim McMahon.
And it's not. And I can tell you right now, it isn't Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon wasn't a great quarterback. You could make the argument, great leader, character guy, all those kind of things. Go back and look at Jim McMahon's careers. Look at his numbers. The only guy that had a worse career than Jim McMahon statistically is Joe Namath.
And I think Justin Fields is another guy, like David just mentioned, that was talented, but is he good? Because, like, I finally watched him go to a team with a great culture in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he didn't really move me that much. Like, I get it. He won football games, but once again, I watched, Tomlin put together over 500 win seasons with Kenny Pickett. So, like, when I feel like there was a reason, let me put it this way, that as soon as Russ was available, Russ was in.
My struggle with Justin Fields is I agree with everybody when they point out his talent and what his ceiling could be. I don't argue with that. I don't know if you're ever going to see that, though. Like, we just talked about how Caleb Williams holds onto the football. Justin Fields holds onto the football more than Caleb Williams. The only difference is Justin Fields' default setting is first read, second read, run. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to go through like 2 reads and then he takes off running. Like, he's running. He's going to run. I don't know. We've had the conversation where we're like, Justin Fields has everything you need to where he could be very Lamar Jackson-like, right? And yet, when you watch him, he's not Lamar Jackson-like. He's going to a Jets team right now with a former college teammate, an elite wide receiver, in my opinion. They've got a great running back tandem, an improved offensive line, a top 5 defense. They've given him everything you need. To me, this is his make or break season, Brett, right? Like, he will walk into there. He's the Jets starting quarterback. He's got talent around him. We're going to find out if he can actually be the guy or not, because I honestly, I don't know.
And I completely agree with that. I think this is Justin Fields' make or break season. If he can be the guy, he's got to show it this year. Otherwise, I think he'll have a spot in the league for a while, but this is going to be the difference of is it going to be in a starting role or is he just going to be a backup? And I think you just kind of mentioned the big thing that he needs to improve on. Like, at least when Caleb Williams tries to improvise, he keeps his eyes down the field. Like, he's trying to make something happen, with his arm and just trying to keep his receivers involved. Justin, as soon as that first read doesn't happen, he's gone. So with him, I would just love to just see him keep his eyes downfield more and not be so quick to just tuck and run.
Yeah.
Like, use your legs, but not at the first sign of trouble.
He reminded me a lot of Mike Vick. Obviously, I'm not saying he was as dynamic as Mike Vick, but he reminded me a lot of Mike Vick. Early Mike Vick. Dan Reeves said, he told Mike Vick, he had Mike Vick go through your first 2 reads, nothing there, go. And Mike Vick he just took off by default. That was the default setting, run. I don't think that's a sustainable way to play quarterback. It never has been. And I know Lamar is unique, but the times that Lamar runs, they're actually designed runs 9 times out of 10. Justin Fields is I don't think you can play quarterback that way and be successful over an extended period of time because he doesn't process routes and plays very well. And maybe in New York, they can develop him and coach him up into that. But thus far in his career, I haven't seen it. Like, look at when he was with Pittsburgh. They had a winning record, but his numbers, I'm just talking about what he did, they were just blah. I don't know what he is. I don't argue about the ceiling, but is he ever going to reach it?
It really felt like that. Justin Fields did great at managing the game for Pittsburgh, and that defense in Pittsburgh is more than good enough to win and punish some bad football teams. That felt like that's what happened a lot, over in Pittsburgh. And as soon as the schedule, they hit him hard in the second half of the year, and as soon as the defense couldn't just punish and just win the games pretty much for them, that's just kind of when the offense fell apart. So I'm hoping for the best for Justin Fields, so I can, at the end of the day, if I have a chance to make fun of the Bears for screwing up another good quarterback, I would love that for myself. But
Yeah.
I'd say at the same time watching him though, I'm just like, oh, I don't know if it happens. Granted, if I know Justin Fields enough though, I think Garrett Wilson's going to have a great year. He loves to lock in on his wide receiver one, so like Garrett Wilson's going to have a great year. Like option 2 and 3, the cupboard might be bare for you, but hey, him and Garrett Wilson are going to be fun.
I agree with that. And like I said, as a fan, I'm rooting for Justin Fields. I really am. I want him to find a home and be able to become the player that a lot of people think he can become. How about this? Let me ask you this question. Who's more likely to have a breakout year? Like I'm talking about a really big season. Justin Fields or Sunshine with the Jags?
Oh. I almost want to say Trevor Lawrence because at least I know he can. Like he's weird in the sense that like I've seen him come like close to like breaking out, but that's also never materialized. And it also feels like with him, at least he's spreading the ball around. There's just a really bad element of bad luck with him because it feels like every year Jacksonville just is close to leading the NFL in drops every single year. So I'm going to go with T-Law because I feel like I've seen him like almost on the cusp, just more often than Fields almost put it together. And then obviously it always falls short, just like Fields. But I've seen more out of T-Law than Fields at this point.
Fair enough.
Say that's another guy who I still think's in a make or break year. Trevor Lawrence.
I agree.
If he has another like underwhelming year, it just what's funny though? I think at the end of the day he's had a decent career. I don't know about Trevor Lawrence if I'm throwing. Do we throw the bust label on Trevor Lawrence after this year? Because I feel like the bust label is tough because I feel like it's also overused.
Yeah, I think he's underachieved, but I don't think he's a bust. Like Ryan Leaf was a bust. That's a bust. Somebody of that nature is a bust. Jameis is, I hate to say it, kind of a bust. Jamarcus Russell was an absolute bust. Those are busts. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a bust, but I think he's been underwhelming when you think of the hype that he had coming out and the talent. Like he has all the things you look for with his height, his arm strength, his mobility. Like he's got everything. He should be skill set wise, he should be a better version of Steve Young, but we haven't seen that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like I said, people will throw the bust label on anybody, but when it comes to like bust, I feel like that should be reserved for like true bust. Like I think there is a bust in the NFL. Looking at the Giants, for example, I think Evan Neal's been an absolute bust. Like I feel like just if you underperform, I don't think it necessarily makes you a bust. It depends on what the situation is. And I think T-Law was just overhyped. Like, he was supposed to be this generational prospect that sure thinks it's like Peyton Manning. Like, I think he got overhyped in the pre-draft process, but at least he showed some flashes of good. Whereas when you're talking about someone, like I said, for like Evan Neal, like, he's just been bad since the start. And he's just like progressively somehow gotten worse every time I've seen him. So yeah, so I definitely, at the end of the day, I do think the bust label is used too much. I saw some people throwing it around last year, like, is Marvin Harrison a bust all because he wasn't putting up like game-breaking numbers in his first year? Like, that's when I was like, okay, let's slow down with that one. Like, he had a great year, and
I would argue Marvin Harrison's biggest problem isn't his ability; it's his quarterback. His
Yeah, no,
his quarterback is really only good when he's doing broken plays. But when you drop back and there's a certain play and a progression and stuff like that, his quarterback is god awful. His quarterback is holding him back.
it almost feels like it's mental when it comes to Kyler because you'll see like when the Cardinals are on a really good run, like when they're all playing well, Kyler plays well. But as soon as you hit some turbulence and you have like a rough 1 or 2 games, like it, Kyler just falls off a cliff. Like he'll look like, yeah, this could potentially be a top 10 quarterback in the league. Is this guy a top like 20 quarterback in the league? Like it's such a massive drop off. Like if the whole team's playing well, he comes along for the ride. But as soon as the whole team struggles, he's not a guy that can lift them up. He just kind of falls apart with them.
And then he'll have these games where he looks like a superstar. Last year against my Niners, like every time they came after him and he broke containment, he was off to the races multiple times for 20, 30, these big chunk gains. He just ate them alive, and he's capable of that. But again, that's kind of the strength of his game, the broken play. And I don't think you can win football games if you're relying on your quarterback to always make something out of nothing with broken plays. At some point, your guys got to be able to drop back, throw the football, throw guys open, process everything. And I just don't think Kyler's that guy.
Yeah, I agree with that. The problem is you just can't scheme broken plays.
Facts.
Like, I guess you could, and you could just be like, yo, tackle, just move out of the way. Just free rush direct Kyler.
I take that back. You can scheme them to a degree because Dan Reeves told his wide receivers back in the day, they would go deep. The defense would come to kill Michael Vick. Michael Vick would break containment, and then it would be Michael Vick against a linebacker, total mismatch. That was their offense. The broken play was Atlanta's offense. And when it wasn't a broken play, every completion was to Algie Crumpler.
Hey, David, listen, I've given Kyler a chance. Ever since his rookie year, I thought he could have developed into like a superstar. But like I said, the problem is, like I said, it's just he's not a guy that's so far shown that he can elevate the whole team. He just kind of goes along for the ride with them. Like we've seen, like for example, the Packers go through a bad stretch, and Aaron Rodgers just rise to the occasion and put the entire team on his back and go. We've seen Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Like we've seen like your top tier quarterbacks and even like some star level players. I've seen Baker Mayfield do that when the Buccaneers are struggling to put the team on his back for short stretches and go. Kyler just doesn't seem like he has that in him. So
he's exciting. He's a great playmaker. It's tough. The Cardinals are in a tough spot because I feel like Kyler's just good enough to where you're like, no, he's our franchise quarterback. And yet he's also just bad enough to where he can't really take you but so far.
Absolutely. But Mo, we went over an hour. That's all the time we have for today. Anything you want to say before we get up on out of here?
I want to thank the chat, Key, Jory, especially David, for keeping the chat live. Great commentary. We appreciate you, man, for coming through. Hey, guys, make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, thanks again for tuning in. And then you can catch shows like Passion and Precision this weekend, and
great show.
It's going to be a lot of fun. You can catch Podcast to be named later. Podcast name deferred, sorry.
I love that name.
I think it's a great name. So, continue to check out Wire to Wire for your fix of sports news, and we're going to have a lot of great shows for you. As for Mo and I, you can see us next Tuesday on Meaty Boys. Until then, thank you for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your weekend.